What is house hacking for the everyday person? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, for me, it's living in a property that you rent out. And I'll give you a real quick example. When I was 24 years old, I moved into a 4-unit building. I moved into unit number 2, and I rented out all 3 of the other units. And this was a very good house hack in that all the rent I collected from those other 3 units paid for 100% of my mortgage payment, my taxes, my insurance. And so instead of me going out and paying out $1,000 a month where I would have been living, I was living for $0. And that's a really good house hack. There's some people who do that and live for half of what it would have cost them. But the common theme of the house hack, whether you live in a fourplex, a duplex, have a house that you rent out extra bedrooms, or you live in a house with an ADU, accessory dwelling unit in the backyard, there's a lot of ways to do house hacks. But the common theme is you're sort of a hybrid rental plus owner occupant. And there's a lot of benefits we could talk about to that, but I think it's a good way to dip your toe in the rental investment business because you have to live somewhere. And so why not live in a place that also turns into a rental investment?
Yeah. Think of it as subsidizing your mortgage. And to me, I always think that the premise of like true wealth, like the catalyst of wealth is getting your mortgage expense to zero as fast as you can. Like what side hustles or what things in life can you do that make your mortgage zero? Because then you can start applying that saved mortgage every month to something else. House hacking is a really great way to do this, right? You rent out a room space, bonus space, like you said, to subsidize your mortgage. And if you can play it right, maybe pay a $0 mortgage. I did an accidental house hack when I was first getting started in 2013, just kind of in marriage. And I was living in Kansas City. We had a friend that he moved. I got him a job at the ad agency I was at, and he's like, "Oh, I mean, I can live with you guys. I'll pay you guys rent for your room." And we're like, "Yeah, dude." He was like, "Well, how much?" And I was like, "How about $400 a month? All bills paid. No big deal." And he was like, "Sounds great. Good deal for him. Good deal for us." Our mortgage was $1,100, which was a lot. We weren't making a ton. I was making $40,000 a year, and my wife was nannying, I think at the time, making $12 an hour. How we even got this house to begin with, it makes me worried for America, but hashtag the Big Short. But we got the house. I guess that's all that matters. And basically, like, we buy this house, friend comes in, and I remember he sends me $400, and I was just like, oh my God, my mortgage was only like $700 this month? That's insane. Because like the apartment that we were living at, this like little 300 square foot apartment before we bought this house, was like $839. I'll never forget it. And so I just remember being like, it's cheaper to live in this house than it was to rent a tiny apartment. And that was like, to me, just this kind of pivotal moment of like, can I buy things? I stopped asking myself, can I afford things? And I started asking myself, how can I afford things? And I think house hacking was like really gave way to this idea of like buying assets that other people cover. Now with that, you do share your space with other people.
Yeah, it could be a temporary thing for a lot of people. Like I don't house hack anymore. I live in a house with our family's just here by ourselves, but it's an amazing first step. I know so many real estate investor friends who started with house hacking. It's like almost everybody who, early in their career tried it. And one of the other reasons we all did it is because the financing is also more advantageous when you live in a property. So like if you're somebody who's like, I don't know if I have enough down payment to buy a property because it's so expensive right now. Well, there's owner occupant financing. If you happen to be a veteran, thank you for your service. You also get a 0% down payment. Like that's pretty incredible. Or if you want to do a 5% down with a conventional loan. So that makes a huge difference because to buy a regular old rental property, you're probably going to put more like a minimum 20%, maybe 25, 30% down. And so that's a huge difference in that you can get into a property, get your foot in the door with a much smaller down payment. And then the ball starts rolling. Just like we talked about earlier, you get the one little property, you get it done, you learn a lot, you get your foot in the door, and then you move on from there.
For sure. I mean, ultimately, and we'll get into financing here in a second, but when you consider all 3 of these strategies, which are like the big 3, I'd say, I mean, you can get into flipping, you can get into BRRRRs, you can get into storage. I mean, there's 1,000 ways to break into real estate, but we're talking about rentals today, right? So I think the one thing to wrap up choosing the right strategy for your deal is like matching your strategy to 3 things: your time, your income, and your risk tolerance. Okay. How much time do you have? If it's little, then you'll probably be a long-term rental, right? What's your income? Do you want to make more? Like is income, cash flow the most important thing that you want to solve? Okay. Well, then short-term rentals are the way that you want to do it. Your risk tolerance / privacy tolerance, we'll put it that way. Are you cool to share your space or your property or your lot with another stranger and as a result pay very little in your mortgages, right? These are all 3 very important things to keep in mind when choosing these strategies, because it's important. It's something that not only do you have to commit to today, but you have to commit to for 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years, however long you end up owning these properties. So you want to be pretty like dialed in on sort of your philosophy around these three things.
I'm gonna add one real quick thing. I've never shared this with you, Rob. So tell me what you think about this one. But I've been telling people that there's kind of three types of investors from a time standpoint. There's a 5-hour investor, like a 10-hour investor, and a 20-hour investor, meaning 5 hours per week, 10 hours per week, 20 hours per week. And the simplest way to think about that is like, if you're listening to this and you're like, I barely have enough time to like take 30 minutes every day on lunch break and look at some properties or something, but that's about all I got. You're a 5-hour investor and you probably need to do like a easier long-term rental, vanilla property, doesn't need a lot of work. You need to do something pretty boring and simple. If you're like that on the opposite end, though, like you have 20 hours per week, or maybe your spouse or partner has 20 hours per week, then you can start considering maybe short-term rentals, or maybe a fixer-upper long-term rental that needs a little bit more work. So I agree with you 100%. You have to like filter out your personal situation, particularly with time, to figure out because you can look at all these strategies everybody else is doing and they look amazing. But if you don't have the time to do it because you're working a lot and you have a family and all that, you got to like match your strategy to the limits that you have in your life. And that's totally okay.
For sure. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Hey, by the way, if you liked this conversation, I've got good news for you. There's way more where that came from. If you want to watch the whole thing, click right here.